In their 15 years of service to Palpatine and the Galactic Empire, the Inquisitorius certainly had their share of successes and victories within the current canon. One success that comes to mind is the use of Jedi Master Luminara to lure Jedi survivors of Order 66 to their death, thereby fulfilling Palpatine's expressed objective for the Inquisitors. However, the canon is also filled with their numerous failures and defeats. The Grand Inquisitor fell to Kanan and Ezra. The sixth brother was easily vanquished by an unarmed Ahsoka. The failures of the fifth brother and seventh sister to remove the threat of Kanan and Ezra, as well as their defeat alongside the eighth brother on Malachor. Even the Grand Inquisitor's defeat of Jocasta Nu, who even he recognized was not a formidable opponent, ultimately resulted in him being embarrassingly hoisted with his own petard. Therefore, it must be asked, if these formerly trained Jedi were chosen specifically by Palpatine as warriors to hunt down and kill the Jedi survivors of Order 66, and also trained directly by Darth Vader and indirectly under the guidance of Palpatine, why do they appear to be so weak within the canon? In this video expose, I will answer this question, focusing on the distinction between the Inquisitorius and the masters they served. It's important to start with the fact that despite their origins through Palpatine and training from Vader, the Inquisitors were not Sith. In fact, they were never intended to be trained as Sith, and were in many ways purposely kept as a distinct and separate entity. In this regard, they were merely supposed to be Jedi hunters who dealt with the survivors of the Purge, and that's it. To train them as warriors equal to the Sith would have been foolish for Palpatine, as he would have been training a force who could rival him. The new Darth Vader comic series sets out just how important it was for Palpatine to ensure that the Inquisitorius did not become a Sith training organization that undid the rule of two. Having set up a confrontation between the Grand Inquisitor and Vader in the Jedi Temple archives, with Vader easily gaining the upper hand and defeating the Grand Inquisitor, requiring Palpatine to intervene and save his life, Palpatine explained that the confrontation was a valuable lesson. The Grand Inquisitor may have been first among Inquisitors, but the Inquisitorius belonged to the Sith. Later, as Palpatine fully introduces Vader to the Inquisitorius, he makes it clear to his apprentice that the Grand Inquisitor, nor any of the Inquisitors for that matter, would never have a chance to defeat him. Again, this makes it clear that the Inquisitors were not being trained as Sith with the intention that they could rival Vader for position as Palpatine's apprentice. The Inquisitors were merely a tool who would be shown just enough to make them valuable in hunting the Jedi, but also restricted in their training so that they never became powerful enough to rival Vader and Palpatine. Even Vader's training of the Inquisitors seems to have been focused simply on making them unquestioning offensive weapons of the Sith, who wouldn't hesitate to carry out the orders provided by Vader, rather than any type of proficient lightsaber duelists. Vader's goal in this regard was simply to undo their Jedi training and press the attack so that they could strike down the Jedi survivors they confronted, with no respect for defensive instruction. In many ways, this type of training was a significant hindrance to the Inquisitors, as we saw the lack of defensive techniques leave the sixth brother vulnerable to a well-trained Jedi in Ahsoka Tano, who despite being unarmed with a lightsaber, simply used the Force to undo his attacks. Therefore, Vader's training of the Inquisitors didn't necessarily focus on turning them into the greatest warriors, merely on questioning ones who wouldn't hesitate to kill the Jedi survivors. Finally, it's necessary to point out that although they were trained by the Sith, Palpatine and Vader intentionally held back information from the Inquisitors, never intending them to be full Sith privy to every bit of information they knew. Even when it came to a mission involving the capture of Jocasta Nu, Palpatine was adamant that the Inquisitors not be given the full details of the Jedi Master's importance, for fear that her knowledge could be used by the Inquisitors against them. In perhaps the most important line demonstrating why the Inquisitors are so weak compared to Palpatine and Vader, Palpatine tells his apprentice, "The Inquisitors will be useful, but they are not Sith." Therefore, it's clear that the Inquisitorius was never meant to be trained as Sith. In fact, the exact opposite can be said, as there are many examples of Palpatine and Vader intentionally keeping the Inquisitors weak, or at the very least, shown just enough to allow them to hunt the Jedi. So there we have it. Why the Inquisitors have so many failures within the current canon. We love making these videos, so why not subscribe for more fun Star Wars theories and discussions? Also, if you enjoyed the video, think about giving a like or leaving a comment. Or perhaps follow us on Twitter at SW Reading Club for updates regarding the channel. Or support the channel through Patreon for access to exclusive hangouts and book discussions. If not for me, for being hoisted by your own flying lightsaber contraption.